6, so far, we have only been factoring things where the leading coefficient is 1. And today in section 6, we're going to introduce problems where the leading coefficient is not 1. Now, we're going to start by once again pulling on a concept that we are actually pretty good at and feel probably pretty confident with, which is multiplication. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a second. You don't need to copy my page because you know how to do this. And I'm going to ask you guys to go ahead and either do distribution or do box method to multiply out your two binomials here. So just take a second and you can do both problems. You're going to do distribution or do box method for these problems. So again, I'm going to be working through it too, but you really shouldn't need to look up at, like, you can look up to double check your answers, but you should know how to multiply at this point. On this first one? On this one?
No, she doesn't write stuff on this.
Okay. So quickly finish up for me. Make sure that your answer matches mine. And I want to point something out to you. So for the last 3 days, Friday, Wednesday, Thursday, when we did factoring for the last 3 days, we said you are looking for two numbers that go here and here, right? That multiply to the back number and add to the middle number. You need two numbers that go here and here that multiply to the back number and add to the middle number. Okay, so we've hit a problem. When your leading coefficient, so that's this number in front of the x squared term, when that is not 1, these highlighted numbers still multiply to the back number. Like 1 and -3 still multiplies to make -3. -2 times 5 still multiplies to make -10. But when that front number is not a 1, that actually kind of messes up our middle term. So you will notice that like -2 plus 5 does not equal 13. It does multiply to make -10, but it doesn't add to make 13. 1 plus -3 does not add to make -5. So today, the trouble is we start with this, and normally our rule of like, okay, it has to multiply to this and add to this, doesn't really work anymore because the first number is not 1. So we're going to learn a process today that will always work. It kind of at first glance is a little bit of a complicated process, but it will always work every single time. And I'll try to show you a few different methods of this today. Now, before we even get there, sometimes if your leading coefficient is not 1, so again, when I say the words leading coefficient, I am talking about that number in front of the x squared. When it is not a 1, the first thing you should always do is first check to see if a greatest common factor can be factored out. Always do that first, just to make sure. Because if you can factor a greatest common factor out and you can make it a 1, oh my gosh, that's going to make our life so much easier. So, like in this case, 5, 15, and 10. Do they have a common factor we can divide out of all? Yeah, we can take a 5 out. So, the first thing I'm actually going to do before I do anything is take that 5 out of all of these. Okay, and if I divide everything by 5, then I have just a single x squared plus 3x plus 2. Okay, well, now the leading coefficient is 1, and I get to go back to my old ways. So if that leading coefficient is 1, well, then that's pretty easy because I'm just looking for two numbers that multiply to 2 and add to 3. So that's still normal. Once you get that 5 factored out, then everything's fine. Because what two numbers multiply to 2 and add to 3? Joshua? 1 and 2. Bless you. And you're done. Do you guys have your homework packet nearby?
Yeah.
Grab it for me really quick. So on your homework tonight, the first 6 are just like that. You're going to be able to divide everything by a common factor and then just factor like normal. Number 1, you have a 2, a 14, and a 36. What can all 3 of those numbers be divided by? 2. So we can take a 2 out right from the beginning. Now, you cannot just let it disappear off the page. Like it's still there. You're just bringing it to the front of your factors. So it's like its own little number out there. And we're going to divide everything by 2. That makes that a regular x squared, just a 1x squared. That makes that a negative 7x. That makes that a negative 18. Sweet. That's great because as long as there's no front number here or it's a 1, you get to factor like normal. As long as that front number is a 1, which I was able to make it a 1, you factor like normal. Two numbers that multiply to negative 18 and add to negative 7. Who thinks they have it? Joshua? 9 and 2. Okay. One of them has to be negative because we're multiplying to a negative number. So if I'm adding to negative 7, which one of those needs to be negative? The 9 or the 2, Sharon? 9. The 9 has to be negative. And then 2. Good. We're going to do one more of those just to make sure we really have that locked down. Okay. Now, number 2. I know they're all divisible by 2, but I'm curious if they're all divisible by 4. I don't happen to know off the top of my head if 140 is divisible by 4 evenly, so I'm going to ask you guys to use your calculator to figure it out. Can you divide 140 by 4 and get a whole number? You can? Beautiful. Then we're going to take a 4 out of all of this. Bless you. Okay, then I'm left with x squared plus 2x. Jimmy, I saw you typing it in. What's 140 divided by 4?
35.
Thank you. Minus 35. Okay. Leading coefficient is 1, so we are good to go again. Has to multiply to negative 35 and add to 2. Look at your factors of negative 35 or 35. The negative just means one's going to be plus, one's going to be minus. Sammy? That won't make 2, I don't think, because 35 minus 1 is not 2. Maddie? 7 and 5. I agree we can make 2 from. Now, it's positive 2. So which one needs to be positive? Which one needs to be negative to add to positive 2? Jeffrey?
The 5 needs to be negative.
Good. And the 7 is positive. Very good, you guys. Nice. And you can use your calculator for all that work when you're trying to figure all that out. Okay, so the first 6 problems on your homework tonight are just like this. And it even tells you, you're going to first look for your greatest common factor, and then you're just going to factor your trinomial like normal. I don't use this X method, although you're going to figure out what that means today. Beautiful. So that's how the first 6 problems work. So sometimes if your leading coefficient isn't 1, but you can take a greatest common factor out and make it 1, then life is still good. Unfortunately, sometimes the leading coefficient is not 1, and there's no common factor to take out, right? These are not all divisible by 2. Okay, so now we have an issue. So I'm going to teach you a few different things today. The first thing I'm going to teach you is the guess and check method, okay? So all of our answers today are still going to be factored into 2 sets of parentheses. The only difference, I'm going to do this in pencil because I'm about to erase it. So all of our answers are going to look like this today. The difference is they can't be x and x anymore. Okay, and let me show you why. What is x times x? X squared. That says 2x squared. Okay, so that screws things up. So they're not going to start with x and x anymore. That just means you're going to have to, there's still going to be x's there, but that just means you're going to have to put a number in front so that it makes it 2x squared and not just regular x squared. So the only way to multiply to 2, what are the only 2 numbers that multiply to 2? 1 and 2. So that just means one of these is going to be 1x and one of these is going to be 2x. That's the only way to multiply to 2x squared, 1 times 2. Okay, so now we have to fill in these numbers. This is where it's a little trial and error. Now, these numbers in yellow, which I'm also going to put in the box method here, these numbers in yellow still have to multiply to the back number because that's how multiplication works with binomials. They still have to multiply, you guys, to make positive 5. Like that is still true. Because if you do box method, you're still going to end up with the 5 at the back. All right? It helps me when they're prime. Really helps me when they're prime. Because again, what is the only way to multiply to 5? 1 and 5. Okay, but here's where guess and check comes into play. Because I don't know which one goes with the 1 and which one goes with the 5. Like I don't know if the 1 goes here and the 5 here or the 5 and the 1 here. Okay, so let's just pretend we have our 5 here and our 1 here. I don't know. This is why I use a pencil. Okay, that multiplies to 5. That's fine. But if I like finish multiplying this out, what's 2x times 5? Okay, what's 1 times 1x? Okay, are 10 and 1 ever going to make 7? No. So that didn't work. So I just switch it around. Put the 1 here and the 5 here. What's 2x times 1? What's 5 times 1x? Can you get 7 from 5 and 2? Yeah. So I think we figured it out. I think the 1 goes with the 1x and the 5 goes with the 2x. Now, we got to be careful because it's supposed to add to negative 7. It still multiplies to a positive though, so these still have to be the same sign. But if it is adding to a negative, they just both have to be negative. And there's your answer. Okay.
And that's when you can't like factor out.
Right.
That's when your front number can't be factored out and it's not 1. Yep. Okay. grab your the sheet that I handed you that looks like this, please. Okay, I'm gonna show you guess and check one more time. And then I'm gonna show you the super fancy method that always works, but it takes a lot of memorization.
Bigger one now. Yes, it's a bigger.
You with me? Okay. So my goal is to figure out my answer. It's going to look like this. I know that these back numbers in yellow have to multiply to 5, so that's nice. I'll get there in a second. I usually start with the front term, though. We have another 2. What's the only way to multiply to 2? 2 and 1. 2x and 1x. Okay, so I know that they have to start with 2x and 1x because that's the only way to multiply to 2x squared. I also know at this point, just to be clear, if that back number is positive, and I'm also adding to a positive, that's like the top option, so they're both going to have to be pluses here. Okay, my yellow numbers have to multiply to make 5. What's the only way to multiply to 5? Okay, 5 and 1. I just have to figure out which one goes where. That's all, because they're going to give me different answers. So I'm going to start with a 5 here and a 1 here. I don't know. This is why it's called guess and check. You just put it, and if it doesn't work, you try again. What's 1x times 5? What's 2x times 1? Is that going to give me 11? No. Switch it around. Try again. Trial and error. Trial and error. 1x times 1 is 1x. 5 times 2x is 10x. Does that make 11x? Yep. I think we found it. And 5 times 1 makes 5. So the 5 goes with the 1x and the 1 goes with the 2x. And boom, there's our answer. Okay, that's called guess and check. What I will tell you is guess and check is way easier when your first and last numbers are prime. When they're prime, it eliminates so many options. When they're not prime, okay, now we get into a bit of a pickle. So I'm going to show you a method that always works, but it's a little complicated, okay? So at the top here, these are kind of our notes. We're going to be looking at trinomials in this format, where A can be a number, B can be a number, and C can be a number. We call this the Xbox method. It has nothing to do with an actual Xbox machine, sorry. Okay, this is going to be called the Xbox method. The X is where we are going to set up, this is going to look, kind of familiar here. The X is where we set up what our potential middle terms would be. And the X is the good part here. We like the X because it helps us figure out where the middle terms are going to be. So in the top of the X, you're going to take whatever your first number is and whatever your last number is, and you're going to multiply them. So you're going to take whatever your first number is and whatever your last number is, we're calling them A and C, just whatever the numbers are, you're going to multiply them and put them in the top of the X. The middle number, B, is going to go in the bottom of the X. Your side terms, here and here, have to wait, I gotta think, sorry. Yes, sorry. Side terms have to multiply to the top and add to the bottom. Sorry, that took me a second. Okay. Once we start doing a couple of problems, you guys, it's going to make a little more sense. Now, that's where you start. That helps you figure out what goes here and here every single time without fail. Every single time this works. Now, in this front box, you still want to keep your ax squared. And in this back box, you still want to keep your c. But again, the pink terms on the side help you figure out what goes here and here. Just copy it down. Once we do a couple of examples, it'll make more sense, I promise. Right now, that doesn't have a lot of context. And then you start pulling out greatest common factors. And that's going to help you get your answer. Okay, so right now I know this made no sense. I got it. Just get it written down. Once you see the process worked through a couple times, I think it'll make more sense. And some of you might just opt to do guess and check, and that's fine. The only issue is when the numbers aren't prime, there's a lot more options you have to guess and check. Okay. Can I move down? We're going to look at example 2. Here's your A. Here's your B. Here's your C. A, B, C. It just goes right in order. 3, negative 19, 28. 3, negative 19, 28. On the top of your X is your A times your C. A times C. Our A in this case is 3, and our C is 28. Okay, I heard a calculator go down. That's always a good sign. 3 times 28. I genuinely have no clue. 84? Cool. I'm going to do this in a different color because it's getting a little squished. Okay. Oh my gosh, that got really squished. Okay, 84 is the top number up here. That is what our numbers have to multiply to, 84. The bottom of the X is always B, which is the middle number, just the middle number by itself. The middle number in this case was negative 19. Okay, we are looking for two numbers that multiply to 84 and add to negative 19. Okay, this process is now what we've been doing for the last 3 days. 1 second. I know some of you already have it. Do you have a question, Katie, or you already have it?
Oh, I already.
That's totally fine. Let me just get everyone caught up here. So 84, I go to my factor sheet. Factors of 84. So the only difference, you guys, between what we did the other day and what we're doing right now is instead of just finding factors of 28, you're multiplying the 28 by the 3 in the front, and now you find those factors. So factors of 84, oh gosh, we have so many. Okay, 1 and 84, 2 and 42, 3 and 28, 4 and 21, 6 and 14, holy smokes, 7 and 12. Okay. I have to make negative 19. 19. Look at your 6 options. Which one am I going to get 19 from? Katie. 7 and 12. That's what goes here and here. And they have to both be negative because I'm adding the negative 9x. And all that helps us do, you guys, is figure out what goes in these diagonal boxes. That's all. It won't ever matter. That's the beauty of it. So Katie said, well, which one goes where? It will never matter. That's what's so nice about it. We're not done. No, we have not found an answer yet. That just helps you figure out what goes here and here. I'm going to show you how this all comes back together. Okay, now this first box is still going to be your 3x squared and your back box is still going to be 28. The only thing the x helped us do is figure out what goes in the diagonal boxes. That is it. That's all it helped with. Now, you know what it all has to multiply to. Now it's just a game. Okay, you start with the greatest common factor somewhere. Like, for example, look up this column, negative 12x and 3x squared. What's the greatest common factor of 3x squared and negative 12x? 3x. And now it's all just a game of multiplication. 3x times what would give me 3x squared? X. 3x times what gives me negative 12x? Negative 4. Good. Okay, I got to go to the other side. It doesn't really matter kind of how. Once you start doing the multiplication thing, you have lots of options. X times what would give me negative 7x? Negative 7. Negative 7 times negative 4 is 28. These are my factors. Okay, now we only did one example. I told you it was complicated today. We only did one. So give me a minute. Don't freak out on me just yet, please. Wait so that we can do a couple more. Okay, I will tell you guys, I'm telling you right now, please trust me. Please trust this process. Once you get it down, it goes so much faster. Like, I promise. You're going to get it. It's like changing a tire. The first time you change a tire, it's going to take you forever one day. Once you do it a few times, you're going to be fine. It's going to go super fast. Yes, ma'am.
Can you use the X method on like the prime numbers too?
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so we're going to do it again. Now, I will tell you guys my preference is I actually always start by putting the first and the last term in their boxes. So like I know that 5x squared goes here and I know that negative 24 goes here. The only thing that X helps me do is find what goes in the diagonal boxes. That's all. And then it helps me kind of narrow options down. But those first and last terms, they still go in those boxes that they normally go in. Okay? The top of the X is A times C. 5 times negative 24. That's going to be a big number, huh? Okay, negative 120. Negative 120 is in the top. The bottom of the X is always just B. So in this case, 37. Now, your factor sheet does not go up to 120, unfortunately. So I'm going to help you out here. You will only get problems that are on your factor sheet. So factors of 120. Okay, you can start being a little bit smarter about this, right? It's clearly not 120 and 1, right? They're not going to add to 37. You're trying to find factors that are going to add to 37. So 120 and 1 doesn't make sense. 120 divided by 2. 120 and 60, sorry, 2 and 60, is that going to make 37? 2 and 60? No, not even close. How about 120 divided by 3? 3 and 40. Can you get 37 from 3 and 40? Yes. Yep. One of them just has to be negative, right? 3 needs to be negative. So you're going to have a 40 here. 40, I'm sorry, it should be 40x. And a negative 3x. That's what's going to go in your diagonal boxes.
And those two numbers are always going to have an X behind them?
Yes. The pink numbers will always have an X behind them, and it will never matter which one goes where. But I'm going to put the 40x here and the negative 3x down here. Okay, you just have to find the greatest common factor one time. So like look right here. This is an easy one. 5x squared and 40x. What's the greatest common factor of 5x squared and 40x? Okay, 5x. And these first two boxes will always have an X. And then it's just a game of multiplication. 5x times what will give me 5x squared? 1x, or just x. Good. 5x times what gives me 40x? 8. 1x times what gives me negative 3x? Negative 3, and then negative 3 times 8 gives me negative 24. Here's one factor. Here's your other factor. So your final answer is the factors written out. It won't matter which one goes first. That's it. Okay, so I'm going to do, now I will tell you guys, you're not going to get ones with numbers that aren't on your factor sheet. So if you're like, well, okay, I don't know factors of 120, that's okay. You're only going to get ones on your factor sheet. Now, grab out your homework, okay? Don't give up on me. Here's what so next year, you guys, let me just tell you what I tell my geometry students. Next year, you guys are going to learn something called proofs. And it's probably going to be maybe one of the most challenging things you do in math ever. But it's not impossible. It's just one of those skills that takes more time than other skills. I always relate it to like basketball. It probably doesn't take people very long to learn how to dribble a ball, right? But it probably takes people a long time to figure out how to do a proper three-point shot. So it just, some skills in life take more time. This is one of those things that takes a little more time. I'm going to do one of these with you. Now again, I know it's going to end up looking like this. I know that for a fact, okay? I know that this is going to be 2x squared and this is going to be negative 6. Okay? The hardest part is I have to figure out what goes here and here. So this whole like it multiplies to this and adds to this, it's still the same game, except you have to actually multiply the first and the last term together. The x is no more than a graphic organizer. That's all it is. That's it. It's not special at all. Okay. A is 2, C is negative 6. What's 2 times negative 6? Okay. And B, what's the number actually in front of x? 1. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 12 and add to 1. Now, if they have to multiply to a negative number, one has to be positive, one has to be negative. Our factors of 12 are 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Which one of these is going to help me get 1? You've done this part already, you guys. Jimmy? 3 and 4. I need one of them to be negative, and I have to add to a positive 1. Sharon? That would make negative 1. What did I just say? Sorry, they have to add to positive 1. I'm sorry. I misspoke. I misspoke. They have to add to, so positive 4 and negative 3x. That's what goes in your pink boxes with x's. So Katie said, are they always going to have x's? Yes, and it won't matter which one goes where. You just put them in. Oh, sorry. Okay, then you start with a greatest common factor somewhere. Look at this. Greatest common factor of 2x squared and 4x. 2x. These first two boxes will always have an x. 2x times what gives you 2x squared? 1x, or just x. Yep, you're both right. 2x times what gives you 4x? Good. 2, I'll do it this way. 2 times what would give me negative 6? Yeah. And then just negative 3 times 1x is negative 3x. So your answer is 1x plus 2 and 2x minus 3. We have time for one more. It's just a process. Once the process gets down, the process itself is not that bad. Okay. Thank you. People listening to the video 5th hour are going to be like, oh my God. All right. We are looking for our middle terms. So the x just helps me figure out what goes in the diagonal boxes. Start with the top. 6 times 4. A times C. What's 6 times 4?
64. I'm playing. 6 times 4 is 24. I just wanted to say that.
B is the middle term. That's negative 11. Okay. Two numbers that multiply to 24 and add to negative 11. If they're multiplying to a positive number, they have to be the same sign. If they're adding to a negative, they're probably both negative. So two numbers that multiply to 24, look at your factors of 24. What's going to help me get 11? You can do this. Come on. How about someone I haven't heard from yet this morning?
Ooh, no.
Dominic? 3 and 8. They just both have to be negative. So that they add a negative 11. Doesn't matter which one goes where. It will never matter. Okay, now we play the game of finding out what goes into our actual factors. How about the greatest common factor of 6x squared and negative 3x? 3x. It's getting cramped. Sorry, I'm going to cover that up. Okay, we got this. I'm going around the room now. Here we go. Celia, 3x times what would give me 6x squared? Good. Miss Maddie, 3x times what gives me negative 3x?
1x.
You're so... No x. 3 times 1 is positive 3.
-1.
Good. Richard, 2x times what would give me negative 8x? Good. Negative 4. And then negative 4 times negative 1. So our factors are 2x minus 1 and 3x minus 4. Is it easy? No. Is it impossible that you have to give up on yourself? No. It's just going to take a little bit more time. So we're going to review this on Monday. We'll kind of see where we're at Tuesday. This might be the hardest thing you do this chapter, okay? Once you get it down, you're going to get it down. You're going to be great. Just give yourself more than one day to learn it.
And that's our homework.
Finishing the sheet is your homework. Did you hear, Sharon? Finishing this is your homework. Yep. The whole page. So 8 problems.